everybody. Bob Ufer here in the chilly snake pit of Columbus, Ohio.
Elliott has the first down and more, and Elliott's going to have a touchdown.
Carl, watch out! Blake Carl, blazing speed. Can he get there? No, but he's down at the Ohio State 11.
Samuel cuts it back. Ohio State wins.
Stroud in trouble, and Stroud is sacked again.
There's nothing quite like the game.
Michigan versus Ohio State, the game of the day, the game of the year, the game of the decade. Call it what you will.
This is The Rivalry, sponsored by Elevated Integrity Construction.
This is the Rivalry Podcast. Jace, JP, your garbage-free sports podcast focused only on the Ohio State-Michigan college football rivalry. On Twitter, at RivalPod. On Instagram, at 1049TheRiver. Subscribe, tell a friend so we can get more eyes and ears on this podcast. We are grateful for our friends at Elevated Integrity Construction. They are sponsoring the podcast. Season number 4. If you've got a construction project, home build, church build, not only can they do the construction, but the design element as well. 2 birds, 1 stone. Go with integrity. It's elevatedintegrity.com. elevatedintegrity.com. And we are really grateful for Elevated Integrity Construction sponsoring this season of the Rivalry Podcast. Let's open up with a little bit of a wheel route. See if we can. We're still not paying for the ad-free version of this, nor will we.
Elevated may be sponsoring the podcast. However, we do not have a sponsor for this.
And to look forward
this
to.
This is easy.
Okay.
This is an easy one.
Okay.
We found out recently that we are going to be making the trip up to Beaver Stadium to watch the Ohio State Buckeyes play the Nittany Lions.
Yeah.
And I don't know why I would not be looking forward to that game.
Yeah. I mean, we had just said right before we got approved for that, hey, what stadium would you love to be at? And I said, going to State College is one of those places as a college football fan you just have to go to. And somebody in the Penn State administration office apparently heard it and said, done, my good sir.
The tweets.
So that should be good. At the end of the year, Arkansas plays Ole Miss late November. My wife's family is from Arkansas. They're like 10 minutes outside of Fayetteville. My brother-in-law and my father-in-law, huge Razorback fans. I've never gone to go to a game with them, trying to sneak into not sneak in. We're going to buy tickets. Like trying to sneak over there, get to the Ole Miss Arkansas game. So if that happens on a personal note, that's just exciting. Would love to see that happen. So looking forward to that. Okay. Rivalry Podcast, Ohio State, Michigan. Let's start with the Buckeyes with a big win over Wisconsin this week. Initial thoughts.
Initial thoughts. I'm gonna amp it up a little bit on my Ohio State fandom because I'm kind of tired of what my mindset was starting to be. Because we beat Notre Dame, top 5 matchup to start the year. We beat them. People are saying Notre Dame's not actually a good team.
People. It's me.
It's Jace. They throw out the noise of Notre Dame's not a good team. I'll partially agree with that. They had a good win this weekend. I wouldn't say North Carolina's a stud program, but I'll go ahead and say it's still a quality win. Toledo and Arkansas State, whatever, throw those down the drain. But then all you hear is about how tough this Wisconsin defense is. And my initial thought was to be skeptical after this and to go, man, Ohio State just carved them up. It was just effortless. We were there, we were watching it, and it was like Ohio State had the ball, you knew they were going to score a touchdown. It was that effortless. And so I started to think on the drive home, is Ohio State's offense this good, or is Wisconsin not as good as we thought? And you know what? I'm tired of that narrative. I'm sick and tired.
You're tired of the truth?
I'm tired of the narrative of if Ohio State outperforms what people's expectations are, that the opponent is somehow lesser. I am of the mindset Wisconsin, regardless of what happens, still has a solid defense. Ohio State's offense is just that stinking good.
Wisconsin is 2-2. They're not. I partially agree with you, but I don't think you can throw out, this is just the narrative.
It's the same argument I guess that you have when you're sick and tired of hearing about strength of schedule. that you go out and you play who you play.
Don't bring logic into this.
And you go out and you handle your business. And that's all Ohio State has done this year. Every single opponent that they have faced, granted, they looked sloppy against Notre Dame, but since then, they have just been a powerhouse. And Wisconsin, people were going in expecting a tough test.
Slugfest, yeah.
And Ohio State went out and shut those critics up. And so I am of the mindset now, I started on the side of skepticism, and now I am sitting here fully confident going, no, Ohio State's just good. They are just a good team. It was a whole nother planet that they were playing on in comparison to this Wisconsin team.
The September schedule is over. Now you've just entered full on into where's the Kool-Aid? Here we go. No, I will give you this because I like to consider myself a very reasonable, logical Michigan fan. This was the first Ohio State game this season that I gulped. This is the first Ohio State game this season that I thought they are who we thought they were.
Thank you.
That this Ohio State team is legitimate. I did not buy it. No, Ohio State is always a dangerous team. Okay.
Yeah,
okay. Look at the last, look at the whole history of Michigan, Ohio State. It's always been competitive. Up years, down years, sure, but it's always competitive. But this is the first game this year that I fully bought that the offense came to play at their full capacity, that the defense played at their full capacity, special teams for that matter. This is a complete football team. This was a complete game from Ohio State. It looked way different than the Notre Dame game, which I thought was sloppy as well. Competition, weeks 2 and 3, throw it out the window. But again, the big thing for me is I thought Ohio State would score. I didn't think they would score with as much ease as they did. That's one key. The other key is I thought Braylon Allen would have himself not win the game, but have himself a day.
And he still did. He had 100-something yards, but I mean, one was for a 75-yard touchdown run. So
and it's just I wasn't impressed by it, and I was impressed by guys like Tommy Eichenberg.
Yeah,
co Big Ten Defensive Player of the Week. 14 tackles in that game.
Yeah.
Playing at the Mike linebacker slot. So I am really impressed with Ohio State there. And I hate to say that, but this is legitimately, if we're looking at the last Saturday in November as the gauge to run everything else through, that's the filter that we're looking through. We're in for an incredible football game in late November.
Yeah, if Ohio State,
we absolutely are.
If their offense is healthy, I mean, just being there and watching it, there are so many people that could kill you on offense. I mean, you got
and no Smith and Jigba in that game either, by the way.
And I know this sounds like a homer, and I said it the first episode of the podcast. Cade Stover brings a whole new dynamic to the offense. I'm not saying before I know Jace gives me this look because he's from my hometown.
Stover.
Dude is an athletic, quick. He's good at blocking. He adds a whole nother element. I don't think other teams last year worried much about Jeremy Ruckert. Not saying that he didn't have the potential.
No, but
Ohio State never really ran plays designated for him.
When you've got Olave, Wilson, and Njigba, the tight end is not a big option.
But now, and we talked about it on the drive home. I mean, you didn't even have Smith and Jigba. You have Flemings. You got Marvin Harrison. You've got Egbuka, and then now you've got Cade Stover as a reliable tight end. I'm not saying he's first round caliber talent, but
he's going to do the stuff that a tight end does.
Yeah,
he's got to be able to block, and if the ball gets thrown your way, you got to have good hands and hold on to it.
Athletic. Honestly, he should have had a whole nother touchdown that just got a little bit thrown ahead of him. But I mean, that's a whole nother weapon. And then you've got a two-headed monster running back duo in Mayan Williams and Travion Henderson. It's like, man, if you shut down one of these guys, you still have to worry. Who do you double?
Yeah.
Who do you pick? Especially when it now opens up to having an athletic tight end. And then you don't have to shut down one running back. You've got to shut down two guys.
Yeah.
I just think that offense is just incredible to watch. It's a well-oiled machine. And seeing them in person is so much different than watching on the TV because you can tell just how fluid that offense moves.
Well, and if you look at the rest of their schedule, and I'm not one to speculate, but that's exactly what I'm here to do.
But I'm going to.
I mean, we looked at their schedule at the beginning of the season. We said, this is a really tough schedule for, I don't know what their strength of schedule ranking is, but
it's a 60s.
It's a tough schedule though, because again, at that point, Notre Dame, Wisconsin, Penn State, Michigan, all on your schedule. Okay, that's a big deal.
Mm-hmm.
Looking ahead, there's not a lot left that I think will challenge Ohio State. It's circle Penn State, circle Michigan. Those are your games. Those are your games left on the schedule. Indiana. Okay, you're through, even though you're only 4 weeks in, you're 50% of the way through the tough games on your schedule, in my opinion. So, speaking of which, before we give a prediction for Ohio State this week, we kind of have to move into Rutgers to the Rose Bowl here.
I think so.
Because this is going to be relevant. The Scarlet Knights, what are you doing?
I brought a little something special.
You don't, I don't know what you're,
A little something special. I don't know if you know.
The wardrobe. Pause for a wardrobe change, I guess.
The last Rutgers quarterback that could throw over 150 yards. Actually, that's not true. So much respect for Gary Nova. This is a Mike Teal jersey.
Oh, boy.
Yeah, that's right. I said it. Mike Teal. The old Rutgers alum. Had to bust it out. I'm very sad.
Yikes.
I'm very sad after the weekend loss.
Yeah,
deal.
Pretty dismal performance against Iowa.
Anytime.
By the way, Iowa Rutgers was the Sickos Committee. If you follow them on Twitter, if you don't worry about it. But the Sickos Committee, number 1 Sickos game of the week, Rutgers, Iowa.
Was I in the press conference at the Horseshoe with the game pulled up on my laptop?
Sure was.
Absolutely.
Sure was. Were you sad? You sure were.
But thankfully the Buckeyes made up for it. But yes.
So Rutgers of the Rose Bowl takes a pretty big. That's where we got started. Takes a pretty big hit.
It takes a big
losing
hit.
to Iowa. Tell me where we're at before we talk about them playing Ohio State.
Yeah, I mean they lost 27-10 to Iowa at home. A rough start. Gave up 2 touchdowns to the Iowa defense. You're not going to win doing that. But I will say, while the chances aren't great, technically still not dead.
Give me
a percentage.
Give me a percentage.
I don't know.
On a scale of 1 to 5 Greg Schianos.
1 to 5 Greg Schianos. I'm going to say a solid. Can I do half Schianos?
I don't know, man. It's our show. You can do what you want.
Okay, I'm going to do half Schianos. I'm going to say it's like a 3.5 Schiano out of 5 chance for them to make the Rose Bowl.
Sure. That seems logical. Let's talk about the fact that they are 41.5 point underdogs to Ohio State, and then we'll talk about the rest of that. That, by the way, the opening spread. The opening spread is all the way up to 41.5 right now. Is there any chance, and why not? Because that's the answer.
Their entire team sleeps in and forgets that they have a game at 3:30 on Saturday afternoon. Then Rutgers would have a chance. It is going to be probably
awful.
One of the worst games I've ever watched. Maybe even worse than Arkansas State.
I think so.
And I genuinely do not know who on offense we have for Rutgers that could pose a threat to this Ohio State team. And defensively, that's the stronghold for Rutgers right now. And it's not amazing. It is capable, but not anything. I mean, if Wisconsin was supposed to have this great defense and look what Ohio State did to them.
Yeah.
Schiano, please just stay in Jersey because it is going to be very gross, very quick. I have my final score of 56-3. I'm scared.
You gave Rutgers a field goal. That's generous.
I think they'll get a late game field goal.
56-9. Three field goals. Or a touchdown and a safety. Like maybe Ohio State snaps the ball over the punter's head or something. Yeah, it's not going to be good. How do you are you going to feel joy and sadness at the same time?
It's weird because
I don't know how to handle this as a podcast. That's a rivalry podcast, but you're wearing a Rutgers jersey.
That's fair.
I don't know how to handle that.
I honestly don't either. It is watching the Iowa game. It feels good, which is weird to say because I genuinely do think, I mean, you giving up 2 touchdowns to the defense is never great. You're not going to win. It's
very bad, in fact.
You're not going to win games ever doing that. But they were competitive the rest of the time. I mean, it wasn't as outmatched as the score would say. And I will say, I am so used to watching horrible quarterback play from Rutgers that finally having a quarterback that at least threw for 300 yards was somewhat exciting to watch because I'm used to less than 100 yards or 140 yards.
Pause. He threw for 300 plus yards.
He threw for 300 yards.
How many total points did you end up with?
Not a lot, 10.
Yikes.
He did.
He still gave that 3.5 Schianos. Okay. Yeah. Ohio State is going to roll Rutgers.
It's not just a game, it's the game. You're listening to The Rivalry.
Whatever your score prediction is, are you going to take off the Mike Teal jersey or are you going to keep it on?
I
kind of feel like you should. While you have your wardrobe change over there, on Twitter at RivalPod or on Instagram at 1049 The River, your score prediction for the Ohio State Rutgers game or the Michigan Iowa game. You've got a chance to win a $25 Chick-fil-A gift card. So make sure you check that out. $25 Chick-fil-A gift card. You don't even have to have a good prediction. Just give a prediction.
Just even say words.
Just at us next time. Let's talk about Michigan.
Do you want to?
I do.
Okay.
Because I don't know, genuinely, I don't know how to dissect this football game.
It's fair.
Michigan, 17-point favorites, give or take, over Maryland. They didn't cover, and that game was a lot harder than it needed to be. If you want, you really had, this is the part that gets difficult for me because from a statistic standpoint, Michigan looked really good. JJ McCarthy was 18 of 26, 220 yards, 2 touchdowns. Blake Corum ran for 243, 243
monster
and 2 touchdowns. Look on the defensive side of the ball. Hemby, the running back for Maryland, had 48 yards, 48. And Talia Tagovailoa had 1 touchdown, 2 picks. From a number standpoint, that sounds like Michigan dominated and beat them by 30. They did not. They beat them by 7, 8, something like that. This is a weird game to dissect. Someone compared it to Michigan's game against Rutgers in 2021, which we were at that game, where Michigan just, for whatever reason, wildly more talented team. And I don't think the talent difference is that wide of a gap between Maryland, but go with me on this. A wildly talented Michigan team that for whatever reason was just kind of snake bit that day, couldn't move the ball, couldn't get anything going, still managed to win and ends up, of course, making the playoff, win the Big Ten championship. That's a pretty darn good comparison to what I think is going to be moving forward, regardless of how the season ends. I don't think that this is a sign that Michigan is washed up or anything like that.
Yeah.
This is just, it's a hard one to figure out. Why could I expected the defense to be challenged by Maryland? I actually thought the defense did a pretty good job overall. I did not expect the offense to have trouble moving the football. I think that's concerning to me. The big thing that I circled was what Jim Harbaugh said was fundamental football we've got to fix. CJ Stokes fumbled the football at the 30-yard line, which ended up being a big piece of that game. JJ had 2 fumbles that got recovered, thankfully, by Michigan. So that's 3 potential turnovers, and Jake Moody shanked a field goal, which the dude never misses.
Yeah. It
was just that type of game for Michigan. So what do you do moving forward? You hunker back down, you get in the film room, you correct the mistakes, you do the small things the right way. And it's a lot more fun to do that coming off a win than coming off a really upsetting loss, you know?
I have a lot of thoughts on this. I don't think we're going to become friends after this. Because I think you're not going to enjoy some of these. First off, I want to start off by telling the story of how I ended up having to watch this game. I already told Jason.
That sounds interesting. Yeah, let's waste our podcast time telling a story about you.
So I went and I was getting ready to watch this game, and I get a call from my father-in-law, and he goes, "Hey, you know how we were going to tear down the big branches out front in your front tree? I'm going to swing by in about a minute or 2, and we're going to do that."
Branch kickoff.
And so I thought, all righty. So I'm like, he's going to bring a chainsaw. It'll be an hour. We'll get these things chopped down. No, it was from noon until like a little bit before 4 o'clock. I was outside doing this. So after a while, I thought, I want to know what's happening with this Michigan game. I was about to sit down and watch it. So I went, we have a bay window in the front of our house, and my wife is looking at me and she's like, "Why are you going inside?" And I'm like, I'll be right back out. Don't worry. I'll be right back. And I went inside and I pulled the blinds apart so that I could watch the living room TV with the game on. So while I was chainsawing stuff, I was watching this game.
That's what you want when you're holding a chainsaw, is you want distraction.
Exactly.
That's really what you're going for.
It was a very good stress relief. But I have some thoughts on this game because I think it showed a lot of the flaws that Michigan has. And one in particular, there were some key things that happened that I don't think went Maryland's way. I mean, the very opening kickoff off the dude's helmet, And
getting hit in the head by the opening kickoff is not a
an
great
ideal
start. No.
Giving away 7 points to Michigan, which ended up being the difference on a huge mistake like that.
Yeah.
Never ideal. I want to talk about McCarthy though, because I know you were just
don't you
saying,
dare.
I know you were
Don't
just saying
you-
that.
don't do-
And
don't
you
do
know,
this.
I've said it. It is in video proof. I have said that in the future, I see McCarthy as a Heisman candidate. The potential is there. He showed why he is not there yet. And I will
Why?
say, I
Why?
will say, there were plays where he was exactly what you want in a quarterback. He was able to extend plays. He was able to get away from pressure, but he has not learned when to, I don't want to say give up on a play, but he has held on and tried to extend a play too long, which is why he had 2 fumbles, which thankfully got recovered. But he's holding on to the ball too long. And while it's great that he's able to get around and be athletic and escape those against a good Iowa defense, you're going to be lucky to be able to get those back. That defense
I don't
is gonna
disagree
be
with you
coming out
there.
with you.
Yeah.
So I think it showed some of the immaturity. And if you can put pressure on him and get him to extend, he was forcing some throws. He wasn't holding on to the ball. Honestly, he wasn't being that quick with his runs. I would have wanted to see him when he's extending those plays, making quick decisions of, I'm going to get it downfield. I'm looking to see if somebody's open. If they're not, I'm tucking it and running it, or I'm throwing it away or something. Him holding on to the ball too long could have been costly to Michigan in a somewhat close game. So that was my biggest takeaway. And also offensively, outside of Quorum, did not scare me. Quorum is a beast in and of his own. He carried that offense.
He did. See, and that's where I go. I don't necessarily
243 yards, Jace.
I-
He carried the offense.
Yeah, but I'm saying McCarthy went 18 of 26, 222 TDs.
He managed the game, but 2 fumbles that could have been costly.
I'll agree with you here because again, trying to be rational. I will agree with you here. He's improved a lot from last year, but last year he did have an issue where he would try to make too much out of it and just the play's over. There were a couple times where he actually there was a long third down where he did make a really good play and that result that's such a dangerous thing in a positive way to have that in a quarterback. But there were a few times where it was like, dude, you gotta get rid of it.
It's great to be able to have that ability, but you also have to have the maturity, and it'll happen. I still strongly believe he'll develop that. It's all just being a part of the game, and you'll get a sense for stuff. And he might even have to just learn the hard way.
And I think from a play calling standpoint, there were some play calls there that I did not think did him any favors. There was a handoff on, and again, this wasn't him, but we handed the ball off on 3rd and 5 to Isaiah Gash. Why?
Yeah.
We let JJ, call a read out, do something creative with it. And no disrespect to Gash, but dude's 4th string. He's got talent, he's got potential, but that's not the play call there. I felt like they could have helped him out more with some crossing routes. They could have done, and he did. He had some guys open deep that he missed about 3 or 4 times. He did connect on one to Ronnie Bell. So it's one of those things where there's a lot of things in the film room that you can look at and go, okay, here's a problem spot. It's a lot easier and more enjoyable to fix it coming off a win like that. Because again, Michigan I don't think they played poorly, but it certainly was harder than it probably needed to be.
For sure.
So looking ahead to Iowa then, and I'll say this too, a ton of teams in the top 10 struggled this week.
Yeah.
Georgia and Kent State. Kent State apparently is in Ohio. Just learned that the other day. I assume.
Where did you think they were from?
Kentucky.
How is he on this?
That's fine.
How are you on this?
Kentucky struggled with Northern Illinois. USC should have got beat by Oregon State, and Clemson, Wake Forest, which again is less so. But I'm saying all these top 10 teams, and Arkansas lost. All these top 10 teams, many of them had trouble this week. So I'm not, unless we're willing to say, well, Georgia's washed up too. I'm not going to panic over this game. I will agree with you here as we look at Iowa. Holding onto the ball too long with that Iowa defense, that could be a disaster. If Michigan can't clean, again, they got fortunate that they only gave up 1. But if you turn the ball over, 3 times to the Iowa defense, you will lose that football game. That is the only
as long
thing.
As they're close, because
that is the
Iowa
only
is not
thing
the ball.
that Iowa has. Spencer Petras cannot move the football.
No.
Period. But if you give him the ball at the 15, cool. It becomes a lot easier at that point. So Michigan's going to have to play a clean game. It's got to be fundamental. I don't think that the defense will have much trouble. I want to see the offense click. If the offense comes out and clicks and looks really good, it's going to be kind of the same thing that we talked about with Ohio State, Wisconsin, where it's here's the big test. Can you move past it? I felt like the test for Michigan's defense this past week, again, it's tricky because they really, I thought, actually played a pretty good game. They gave up almost 400 yards of offense. So like, which one is true? I don't know, but I was okay with the defense. I want to see the offense be able to move the ball on what we know is a good Iowa defense. It remains to be seen if they will. Michigan's 10.5 point favorites here. It's pretty good. The over under is 42.5. So not a whole lot of scoring. Take the under. 27-13. Okay. I think Michigan wins at 27-13.
Okay. I have similar thoughts as you. I kind of agree with what we talked about with Wisconsin going into Ohio State. Iowa's defense is great. I am not convinced in any universe that exists that Iowa can score more than 20 points against Michigan. And I think it's 100% chance that Michigan scores more than 20. I think my final score for this, 34-10 Michigan. I think it'll be...
34 points on that defense, I will take.
I think Iowa will get a turnover on defense that'll lead to an easy touchdown. They could barely move the ball against Rutgers. Yeah. Outside of those 2 defensive touchdowns, it was a close game.
Yeah.
Michigan's defense is astronomically better than Rutgers defense. It's not going to be good.
Again, yeah, that's not up for debate.
Compliment. You don't have to kick me while I'm down.
Jim Harbaugh did say in his press conference on Monday that Kinnick Stadium is where top 5 teams go to die. And he's not wrong about that. So whether thank God it's not a night kick.
Oh, if it was a night game, it would be reverse.
Still going there at all is always a concern. And that's something, again, Michigan and Iowa have both gotten bit in Kinnick Stadium time and time again. I don't think they've got enough there, but it's Iowa, and it's always something funky when you go into that stadium. So I think Michigan's got this one. Let's wrap it up again. You on Twitter at RivalPod, on Instagram 1049 The River. Score predictions. Win a $25 Chick-fil-A gift card. Get in on that action. Stupid Genius this week, which is our upset pick. Last week, Wake Forest let me down, double overtime against Clemson. Hasn't been a great couple of weeks for me. You start with your upset pick this week.
Okay, I'm gonna share 2. I know I always do.
You pick one, man.
I do this.
Okay.
My first one, Oregon State over number 12 Utah. I
like that.
I have zero faith in Utah. I picked them actually earlier. I think they played Florida, maybe. They played somebody at the beginning of the year, and in my mind, I thought. I just don't
it was Florida.
It was Florida, and I thought Florida's going to go in there and beat them, and they did. And I am not convinced that this Utah team is all that scary.
Well, Oregon State should have beat USC.
I think Oregon State can go in there and they can compete. This is the one I think you're going to enjoy. Arkansas over Bama. That's my spicy one. I told you I had a spicy one lined
16.5 point dogs. I took the Hogs too.
Let's go.
Ooh, pigs, suey, Razorbacks.
Is that their actual thing? Stop it.
Alabama going into Fayetteville. Gonna lose to the Hogs. KJ Jefferson I can't do this. This is gonna fall off.
You've already committed.
KJ Jefferson is a full-grown man at quarterback. Arkansas's ticked off that I can't do this. Arkansas's ticked off that they lost to A&M. Arkansas's ticked off they lost to A&M. And I look at what Texas did with Alabama. And I think Arkansas is a better football team than Texas is. Give me the Hogs, baby.
Go Razorbacks.
That is 3:30. No, is that noon to 3? Google it. You don't need me to do that for you.
A bunch of Alabama people are going to be real sad in the evenings on Saturday.
You know what? That's all. Again, something that both sides of this podcast can agree on. Thanks for listening and subscribing. Go Hogs.
The Rivalry is a production of River Radio Ministries. Want live updates from the show? Follow us on Twitter at RivalPod for live tweets, score predictions, contests, and more. And make sure to follow us wherever you're listening now for new episodes every Wednesday. And if you like what you're hearing, tell a friend so they can listen too.